that note, I'm very happy to turn to Mahmoud Mohiuddin, our friend and colleague who's worked tirelessly for cooperation between the UN and the World Bank in his role as Senior Vice President for Partnerships. Mahmoud.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for this introduction. I'm very pleased and honored to be among the panelists in this important topic. The view of the World Bank Group on Goal 16 is very much, it's critical goal. It needs to be taken seriously. We have very little experience, as you alluded to it, while the elements of SDG 16 and the targets and some of the indicators are very well known, but integrating them fully in the development agenda with the right institutions, with the right policies, and with the right financing is very new to us. And these are basically the three elements for any kind of success, and this is the main message that we got of success and failure from MDGs. If you don't have adequate institutions, if you don't have adequate policies, if you don't really have the qualified finance to get things done, it's going to be just a talk. Even if the documents are going to be showing us more promises and to be more specific than they were in the case of Goal 16. One of the other aspects of the work that we have been saying, jointly with UNDP, we did a study on 17 different countries in different stages of development, from all of the continents, from very small countries in terms of size to very big ones. And we have been seeing this kind of common sense interconnectedness between the elements of SDG 16 and the development and the human development aspects, including as well the MDG 1 then, which is SDG 1 today, with much more ambitious targets in ending poverty, have been very much compromised if you are taking matters related to the elements of SDG 16 right. We have seen that countries that suffered from lack of governance, lack of discipline, and accountability, they didn't manage to achieve one single target of the MDGs. We're talking about very simple targets compared to the SDGs, very much less ambitious targets, and we have a list of countries, they didn't even achieve one single target by the deadline in 2015, and unfortunately some of them are not appealing to us that we are going to be achieving any of these targets based on the MDGs era and scenarios and kind of work by 2018. So this is very, very serious. And the beauty of MDG 16 is not just the novelty that it cuts across all countries. So you can always, even if you don't have it as a kind of a standalone SDG, which is not the spirit of the 2030 agenda, for any kind of serious attention of any of the other SDGs, the components related to governance and monitoring and transparency have to be there. So in a more practical note then, we're very pleased to have the Global Alliance established. We offer our help, what we can do to make its work success, and one of the areas that we can be hopefully helpful in is the work related to data and indicators. And we're doing that at the country level, and we have the kind of struggle across all of the indicators with data. And actually, if you are from a developing country like mine, you shouldn't really be embarrassed because of the lack of good quality statistics if you take it with a kind of a comparison to some of the OECD countries. But you should be embarrassed down the road if you're not doing the effort and the investments and the kind of institutional requirements there. Quoting some of the leading statistical authorities from Europe, two of them, they are saying that we can only have data for like 60% of the total indicators. And of course, this new difficult set of indicators associated with SDG 16 are going to be showing us more challenges, but I'm happy to tell you that our colleagues, especially in the governance practice in the organization, have come up with good ideas and good proxies when you don't really have the actual data. Meanwhile, the World Governance Indicator, which is a joint product with Brookings Institute, have been doing this work for many years, and it covers 6 dimensions of governance. All of them are reflected in SDG 16. Voice and accountability. I'm happy that our friend Savi from Amnesty International had this strong, relevant emphasis to the issue. So voice and accountability is there. Unfortunately, you might see some missing data here and there, but at least the concept and the methodology is very much well established. And here we're not talking about something new. As you alluded to, it goes back to 1996. So if you want to integrate it with the political will, it's all there. This is the first dimension. The second is a measure for political stability and absence of violence. The third is related to terrorism. The fourth is related to government effectiveness. And then we have regulatory quality, rule of law, and control of corruption. This is, I know that the methodology will be challenged, but as we say, unless you can come up with a better methodology, we are happy continuing with what we have. So these indicators and others could be very much used in order to enhance the kind of knowledge required for monitoring the progress of SDG 16. Happy to say as well that I had a long meeting yesterday with our new chief economist, Professor Romer, and he agreed on the approach established by the outgoing chief economist Basu to have the indicators published on annual basis. We are just figuring out is it going to be associated with our new report on monitoring the SDGs, which is going to be replacing the global monitoring report by the name of Global Development Outlook. It is going to be a separate document. In all cases, it's going to be out. What is not final yet is the decision on one of the 3 R's, whether it's going to be just a report, or it's going to be a rating of countries, or a ranking of countries. If you are asking me individually as a person not associated with the World Bank Group, I would go for the rating. As controversial as it gets, but it gets some certain dynamics of competition, and at least the competition of availing data. If you see your country as number 192, 3, you'd be wondering what's happening here. So you'd be pushing. Of course, in the course of doing that, the methodology could be challenged, and the country could say, well, I'm not 193, I could be worth 170 or something. Of course, people could really be fighting to say themselves among the top 50, as is in the case of the doing business indicators, which is going to be published in a few weeks, and we get normally the kind of interesting reaction why my country is in this particular rank. This creates some certain dynamics of availing data, of getting matters seriously, and indirectly it can get us into a serious matter related to accountability. Of course, there is a debate in a cooperative, global cooperative, somebody's calling us a cooperative for some old reasons, but in any way, they wouldn't say, go for a name and shame approach. But it's not an name and shame, just stating facts. And if I'm not happy with those facts, challenge them with better data evidence. So, in short, there is a challenge associated with data and indicators, but we're happy that there is some sort of serious attention to that in different ways, and if the real data is missing, we are working with the proxies. And we hope that your initiative is going to be successful and using some of our resources, and we're happy to tailor some of the work as well for your needs going forward. Having said that, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mahmoud, and also for highlighting the good work that is going on at a technical level to think what are the indicators and proxies that are really feasible to give us the information that is needed for accountability, but also to inform implementation. because we have to think about the data, I think, not just in terms of accountability, but also to really give the information to inform better efforts in the future. I have to say that earlier this week in an event we had with Brazil and Switzerland on implementation of SDG 16, the Swiss minister noted that the Swiss Statistical Agency was having a headache with the indicators for Agenda 2030. Now we have to believe that if the Swiss Statistical Agency is having a headache, then for countries whose capacities and resources are much less, this can really be a hangover.
Yeah.
And we have to, I think, try to find a strategic approach to data which lessens that burden. We have, I think, just 7 or 8 minutes for very quick comments before the President of the General Assembly arrives with us. I'd like to call first on Benjamin Randall from the Goldman Sachs Foundation, and we may have time for 2 or 3 others, but I'd ask you please to keep your comments to a minute or less.
Sure. So we in the private sector look forward to supporting the Alliance to strengthen reporting on progress towards the rule of law and making societies truly inclusive. As an example of what this support might look like, over 120 lawyers and support staff from Goldman Sachs and law firm White & Case mobilized this year to conduct a large pro bono research project which examined legal barriers to women entrepreneurs in 14 different jurisdictions worldwide. This volunteer team was able to analyze hundreds of statutes and regulations and thousands of relevant court decisions to arrive at findings on the status of women business owners under the law in these states. We feel confident that we and organizations like ourselves would be able to organize similar pro bono legal efforts in order to support the Alliance and the reporting that's critical for achieving SDG 16. This support could include assistance in identifying legal and other pro bono resources, providing subject matter and practice area expertise and capacity building, as well as helping to strategize next steps towards enhancing reporting on SDG 16. A piece of relevant experience on our part comes from the Goldman Sachs Foundation's 10,000 Women Initiative, which is working to provide business education to 10,000 women entrepreneurs across more than 40 countries. In recent years, the initiative has also launched, in cooperation with the IFC, a $600 million lending facility and fund for private investors to lend to women entrepreneurs to fill the gap of capital access that exists. I also wanted to add that it needs to be kept in mind in the private sector that the rule of law and inclusive societies are really public goods that the private sector relies on and directly benefits from. As a result, in my own view, it behooves the private sector to do everything in its power to support inclusive societies and the rule of law. Corporations really should be acting as progressive models of inclusion and of governance.
Thank you very much. I have a comment from the row behind, please.
Sí, hablo en español. Hola. Mi nombre es Nicolás Laino. Yo soy representante de la Defensoría Pública Federal de la República Argentina. Bueno, quería felicitar por este evento. Ha sido realmente muy interesante. Y por otra parte, viendo la conformación de esta alianza global, que me parece realmente muy importante para la consecución de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, me preguntaba si no pensaban en la posibilidad de incluir dentro de las membresías, además de Estados miembros y sociedad civil y organizaciones privadas, a instituciones públicas, como pueden ser las defensorías públicas, que no son los Estados miembros, si bien son parte del Estado, y que tienen una autonomía, como es el caso de América Latina, donde las defensorías públicas son actores importantes en materia de acceso a la justicia, sobre todo con relación al objetivo 16.3, y en el caso de Argentina y toda Latinoamérica, bueno, en Argentina en particular la Defensoría Pública Federal realiza una labor muy importante para el acceso a la justicia de los sectores más vulnerables, no solamente proveyendo universalmente defensa civil y penal, en casos criminales y civiles, a toda la población, sino además trabajando con grupos vulnerables específicos de la sociedad. Entonces, se me ocurre que podría ser una buena posibilidad la de admitir que instituciones públicas, pero que no sean el Poder Ejecutivo,
the suggestion about membership of public institutions, the judiciary, that are not part of the executive?
One thing I think, for the private sector, and I think for all of us, the work that I do really is about advising governments and multinationals and the UN system itself, recently with a report we did on the UN Development Group, on what can be done to improve governance and rule of law, that can be done to tackle illicit flows and all the sort of spectrum of issues that fall under Goal 16. Measurement obviously is absolutely critical. We have to measure this stuff. We have to know what we're measuring as well. But there's this critical middle piece here in that theory of change you were talking about earlier, where identifying what the ambition is and what the big objectives are, measuring that, but how do we get from this one to that one? And to me, there's an opportunity for a group like this that brings this group, this range of stakeholders together to really be a resource for member states, for companies, on what they can do to actually really address their own governance issues, whether that's a mining company in South Africa, or whether that's an NGO in Geneva, or a humanitarian actor operating in Syria. What are the real governance, the nitty-gritty stuff, the roll up the sleeve sort of stuff that needs to be done in order to really make progress on Goal 16? Thank you.
Thank you, and it's a very good linkage perhaps to mention that some of the other initiatives, including involving some of the same member states we've seen here today, the Pathfinders Initiative for SDG 16, the FUNA's Initiative for Discourse on SDG 16, are looking at that question of how do we get from here to there. I'd like to turn now to welcome the President of the General Assembly, to welcome also my colleague Oscar Fernandez Taranco. We're now in the closing session of this event. We had a very vibrant debate between member states engaged, business and civil society participants. I'd like first to turn to Oscar, who I know has reflected a great deal on these issues, and then ask the DGA to give the closing remarks.
Thank you, Sarah. Madam Chair, what I'm about to read is actually the statement from the Secretary General to this high-level event on achieving peaceful, just, and inclusive societies for sustaining development. So I will read his statement. I am pleased to send greetings to this valuable high-level event, and I thank the organizers for making it possible. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was the result of the most inclusive consultative process ever, undertaken by the UN with inputs from civil society, the private sector, a range of other stakeholders, and ordinary citizens from around the world. It sets out ambitious new goals, which were not part of the Millennium Development Goals, making them an integral part of a new universal agenda. The mutually reinforcing relationship between peace and development, and the commitment to delivering peaceful, just, and inclusive societies is a defining characteristic of the 2030 Agenda. To make it a reality, all stakeholders must join forces to build on their respective strengths and forge new partnerships for collective action. The recent resolutions on sustaining peace stress the need for dedicated action to address the root causes of violent conflicts. They emphasize that sustaining peace is a shared task and responsibility that needs to be fulfilled by the governments and other national stakeholders, along with civil society and the private sector. The resolutions also make clear that at the heart of sustaining peace is a commitment to promoting poverty reduction, the rule of law, access to justice, and good governance. These priorities are common to all countries, and their achievement will require dedicated action from stakeholders around the world. Initiatives like this new global alliance, which emphasize the importance of effective reporting to capture positive progress across the world in delivering these priorities, will be essential to achievement of the peaceful, just, and inclusive societies we all deserve, and to the successful implementation of the 2030 Agenda as a whole. I wish the Global Alliance the best possible results in bringing this positive experience to light, while linking people and institutions within and among countries to find solutions to common problems so we can advance towards a more just and inclusive future. Thank you very much.